Welcome back to the Reboot Show. I'm Luke Stow, your host today. And today I'm joined by Drew Alexander, who's co-founder of XAM Consulting, an apps development expert, and Brendan Cox, Senior Director for Capgemini, also an apps development expert, and our regular expert panelist, Amy Smith. And today the topic we've got is application development. Brendan, how has development changed since you joined and since you started your career?
Thanks, Luke. Just first, it's fantastic to be here, and thanks for inviting me on the show, Luke and Amy. It's a privilege, and hopefully the audience can learn a thing or two about app development. So I first started my career back in 2006. So it's been a while, and I've seen a lot of changes. Some good, some bad. But I think what's changed the most for me is the big boom around cloud computing. When I first started, cloud computing was a bit of a new thing. And I think a lot of companies didn't quite trust it back then. So it wasn't a boom until quite a few years later. So I think a lot of companies didn't trust it because it's like, well, where's my data? I'm used to having it here in the back room where I am right now here in Melbourne. But with cloud computing, it means that your data could be stored anywhere in the world, like Japan, for example. So it's like, well, why is my data over in Japan? That can't be secure. So I think it took until the likes of Google and Salesforce to invest in that security aspect, and because that's what their customers were saying. So even banks back then, they wouldn't even consider a cloud strategy. So if you fast forward now, if they don't have like a cloud first view on their technology, they're going to fall behind.
Yeah.
So for me, I think that's I know it's quite a high level area, but that's for me the biggest change. Drew, I'm not too sure if you got something else on that as well.
Yeah, I think that probably one of the biggest shifts that I've seen has been the move away from just software being and apps being created to perform functions and being functional-based applications more and moving towards a more engaging software solution. So what I mean by that is it used to be about achieving the objective of an application as quickly and as cheaply as possible and hope that people would be told to use those applications. And what we've learned in the industry is that people only use applications that they enjoy working with, and you have to create solutions that people want to use, not need to use. So the whole engagement side of building applications the right way with a human-centered approach to application development has been the biggest shift that I've seen over recent years. That plus the technology, I mean, the technology changes so quickly that you're literally continually having to evolve. So everything's changed.
And just staying with you, Drew, just on that point and to Brendan's point about cloud technology being so predominant now, I'm interested in your thoughts. Are coders still coders? Are they actually, I was a COBOL programmer, are they getting in and coding, or are there tools now that they use that make it, not as hard to do?
I think that there's definitely an evolution of low code and optimized code platforms that people can use, but the skill of coding and architecting solutions is very much alive. And I think that there's different development techniques for different problems you're trying to solve, but I mean all of the developers that work on custom solutions, they're generally leveraging all their own skills that they've developed over the years. So absolutely, I think that coders are definitely still coders.
I might just quickly jump in, Luke. One of the points that Drew said before about how technology's changed a lot. I think what we've gone through at the moment with COVID-19 and the fact that we all have to work remotely, if this happened a few years ago, there's no chance that we would have been able to work remotely because the technology just wasn't there. And I've come across some customers that tried to work from home and tried to get their workforce to work from home, but they just didn't have the technology to support that, which was a bit of an eye-opener. So I think for some companies that are behind a little bit in their technology, I think what they've been through now just highlights to a lot of people that you need to have the latest technology to be successful.
And Amy,
part of that is like a contact center. There's some companies that can work, the whole contact center can work from home. So there's no disruption to their business because an agent could just dial in from home when they wake up out of bed, dial on, they can service customers from home. So I think that's a huge improvement and has helped with that disruption.
So I'm interested in, Amy, perhaps you can comment on this as well when the gentlemen give their views, but what are some of the challenges of, you know, looking for people who can do this role in coding these days? What type of skills and attributes and characteristics are we looking for in these individuals today?
Yeah, I guess from a skill point of view, you know, when you're looking at the development side of things, there's three key things that are pretty crucial for anyone in that role. You know, firstly, they need to obviously have the technical, analytical skills to be able to do the job. They need to know the technology that they're using. That's pretty fundamental. The next thing they really need to have is problem-solving abilities. Like, as the guys have mentioned, things are moving so fast. You know, you're troubleshooting on the fly, and being in a remote environment a lot of the time as well, you tend to not have some people around you to lean upon. So you need to be able to have those problem solving capabilities yourself. And lastly, like the communication as well, because sometimes we just focus way too much on the technology side of things, but to be able to sort of communicate with your team members and with your stakeholders, with your clients as well, is pretty fundamental in the role.
That's a really important point, Amy, and I think to both Drew and Brendan. So with the complexity of this fast pace, you know, with application, you know, in advancement and cloud technology, what are some of the issues that are coming up with your teams? Like, how are you working with teams to make them more efficient, more effective in doing this development work?
Drew, Drew, jump in first, sorry.
Yeah, so I think that, you know, the methodologies in which we use to deliver technology are very important. I think that there's the proven benefits in breaking application development into a sprint-based approach to following the ceremonies that are related to Scrum or Agile. I think that, you know, making sure that your people are continually developing themselves and writing clean code and using techniques that are you know, best in practice for those kind of things, they all definitely contribute to that challenge.
And just to add, I think both of you sort of touched on it a little bit. And if you look at it away from technology, true coders are there to code, but I think a successful coder needs to understand the business aspect and what value are they delivering by doing their piece of code. I've seen it too many times when a developer gets a Jira ticket or whatever ticket or whatever user story they have, and they bang, 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 and they go away, they develop it and they pass it off and they get the next one. I think what's changing now, which is a good thing, is that coders are now asking questions like, why am I doing this? Like, what's the outcome of this piece of work? Someone's like a functional consultant has written some pseudocode or has written what they want out of it, but what am I actually building? So I think successful developers need to understand the business. So it's a big shift for a coder, because old school coders, yeah, they get it, bang, 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 they get it out. But now I think people need to have a different frame of mind.
Yeah, that's actually something that I'm really passionate about. I believe that to build applications, you have to put the user at the center of the problem, and you have to understand all sorts of aspects. It's not just about a great looking application or the perfect technology. You know, there's all those external factors, cultural factors, environmental factors, device factors. There's so many different elements that make up a successful application. And it's important that there's a holistic view of all of those elements that are put into a pot to build a successful application. And that was sort of what I was touching on earlier on. I think it's the most important thing to achieving success in an app development project, and to give a developer a chance of having that success is setting up for them in a way that they have all of those pieces of information available to them, and the application has been designed with those things in mind.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I mean, I think that when I can recall coding myself, you know, coders were sort of stuck in a side room somewhere and didn't really talk to business that much. And now what's the main things happening now, Amy? Like, do you see that the place of a technology coder is sitting beside business? And guys, what do you think, Amy? I'll start with you.
Yeah, well, they both bring up a really good point, both Brendan and Drew there, in terms of, I remember in IT recruitment, you'd get resumes thrown across your desk and it would be all the technology, focus, but the ones that would really stand out were the ones that could actually really link it to the business problems that they were solving. And so I think there is more of an integrated approach now, where you really do need to have an understanding of that business strategy. You need to be able to work amongst different teams. You need to fit in as part of the whole organizational culture, not just the back end office structure, as you said, Luke. So
yeah, I heard someone make a good point on this, where they said if IT is going to become part of the fabric of business, then the business needs to become part of the fabric of IT. So they're kind of, the walls have to go down, and everybody has to become part of one business together.
Yeah, great, Brendan.
I think what's helped with that is this agile methodology that a lot of companies are now doing, because it means that there's a small squad. So there's multi-skilled, cross-skilled people within that small squad. So the ability to work between 8 people compared to a large team of 50 people, you can share you can share information a lot easier between 8 people. So I think developers now, when possible, is able to go and sit with a business and say, okay, this is what you need, and do you want this button green and not blue? Because down the track, they'll probably want it green, not blue. So I think it's bringing coders a lot closer to the business, and I think that's proven to be successful.
So Drew, just carrying on from that, is it more simpler models and methodologies and work practices that are required for modern day application development? Is that where we're at?
Yeah, I think that the techniques that we use now and the methodologies that we use now are proven to bring a lot more success, and I think that they've been born out of so many failed IT projects. And building software is hard, but the idea of having disengaged a business from the actual development of the project seems kind of old-fashioned now. It was certainly the idea of having an enterprise-grade project running without a business stakeholder involved at each stage just doesn't. I mean, I'm sure it does happen in certain organizations, but to me, that just doesn't seem like something I would see too often these days.
In 2020, do you think that the IT department should be a standalone function, or should it be integrated into the business? Amy, what are your thoughts?
I think it definitely has to be an integration, right? Everyone wants a seat at the table. And I think it's a really important function within the business. And so it has to be a part of that culture and that fabric, to Drew's point, of the organization. Because I think as the complexity of organizations grow, there's no point in having silos anymore. Everyone needs to be integrated. Everyone needs to be working towards the same path and the same agenda.
Great. And Brendan, Drew, thoughts?
I totally agree. I think Amy, you nailed it on the head then. It has to be integrated, and I've seen projects where it's led by IT, and things don't go the way it should. And once you get the business collaborating with IT, with an SI or with some contractors, it's just one team. So there's as you say, Amy, there's no silos there. Let's just discuss what we need to do. Everyone's sitting on the same, co-located where possible. If it's offshore, let's get them onto a VC. And right now, with what we're going through, everyone's remote.
Yeah.
There's 4 of us here, and I'm in Melbourne. You guys are in Sydney, but we're still collaborating. So
I'm interested to know from both of your points of view as well, like, how are you guys collaborating right now? Like, what's really working in terms of those team collaboration efforts and that integration approach in the organizations that you're working with?
Well, I think that what you really see is the companies that have been doing this for a long time, seeing them bear the fruits of that labor. If you already had those principles in place where you had all of your work tasks were digitally delivered, they were all detailed out beforehand, then you had that discipline of running in sprints and working with potentially offshore teams or remote teams, then this transition has been really, really straightforward for those companies that that have to do that. So that's been really positive. I mean, in terms of the practicalities around that, video conferencing, daily stand-ups, things like DevOps or Jira, or those Trello, those types of work management systems to distribute workload and monitor activity. So it's really just part of a modern digital business. And I think that many companies were already on that track, and if not, then COVID has been the thing that modernized them more than anything. So I don't think they'll go back now. So there's something that's come out of it, I guess.
And maybe Brendan, to you, with this offshore model during COVID times and everyone working remotely, how are you managing the productivity of coders today? And tell us about some of the techniques that are being used.
Yeah, it's look, it was quite tough at the start. So back in the March, April period when it all kicked off, we were lucky enough that our clients are quite tech savvy, and we were able to eventually with some of them. And when I say eventually, it's only a couple of weeks where we could work from home easily. There was a bit of disruption. I'm not going to lie, because it's if we're doing design workshops, it's a lot easier in a room of 10 architects to design something. But now we're online, and there are online tools that you can do, like whiteboards and whatnot. But I think now a lot of people are used to it now. I think people have found a lot of workarounds, and I've recently had a really good design workshop with one of our clients where it went really well. It was like we were in the same room. But it did take some companies time, and that's not a criticism at all, because we weren't used to it, and no one predicted this would happen either. And that involved offshore as well. I think what has happened with our offshore team, and I'm sure it's other offshore teams as well, but it's actually brought them closer to the client, because as I said before, we're really all remote working. So now the offshore team get a lot more involved with the actual business people, because in the past, you've got the onshore team who would then pass information off to the offshore team. So, well, let's get the offshore team involved now. So I think that's changed a lot of the way that we work as well.
Yeah, I think it leveled the playing field, right, Brendan? Because everyone's suddenly remote, so there's no more opportunity to have like those conversations or learning through osmosis you get from sitting next to people, and you mean to catch them up, those remote people, but never quite happens. So then they're a little bit further behind than everyone else, and that's all been leveled out now. So I guess that's kind of been a good thing for the offshore guys, certainly. Even though there's real value in some of that osmosis, and some of that interaction that you have when you're not in meetings. So.
And I suppose everyone's using virtual sticky notes around rather than post-it notes around the office in those workshops now. Is that the case?
Yeah. I don't really. That's one thing that I think that we use a tool called Miro, which is a great tool, and it does allow you to collaborate, and there's some definite benefits to that, but I still don't think you can really beat getting in a room with a bunch of sticky notes and a bunch of smart people and with a problem, problem statement and solving that together. So yeah.
And we've talked about productivity, but what about code quality? What are the modern days ways of checking code quality? What are you seeing?
Brendan, I'll let you take that one.
I was hoping you'd answer this one. I don't think that technology has changed too much, because from my point of view, a lot of our development is done offshore. So we still use the same process. There are tools out there that you can use to check the quality code, like PMD, etc. So for us, that hasn't shifted much because of what we are going through. If you compare to back 5 years ago, there weren't as many tools out there that were as efficient as what they are now. So we have come across some really good tools that check code quality and give you some good reports to give you a level of your quality, that you then give to clients, and you can pass through the different environments to prod. So I think if you look back compared to now, compared to even 5 years ago, it has improved, definitely.
So with all this going on, You know, with coders, productivity, offshoring, working with people on different shores, and also quality. Is it still fun to be a coder?
Is it still fun? I might jump in, Drew, because I was thinking about this today. I think 10 years ago, right? If someone said to you at a party or somewhere, and they go, "So, you know, what do you do?" And you go, "I'm a coder," they kind of like drift away from you. Like, really? Okay, sounds like fun. But now, if you tell someone I develop mobile apps, like, "Oh, how cool is that?" And I've got so many ideas that I can give you. Can you build me an app by the weekend? You go, "Well, it's not that easy," but we can talk about it. So I think people are more interested in coding because it's a bit sexier now than what it was 10 years ago.
Drew?
Yeah, yeah. I guess solving problems, some of the bigger challenges and the more challenging the problem you're solving, probably the more fun you're going to have, right? So how meaningful is the app that you're building? How big is the problem you're trying to solve will probably dictate how much fun you have during it, along with the tech that you're using, you know? So if you're coding on 20-year-old stack and you're, you know, building a solution that doesn't excite you, then that's probably not the coolest thing. But there's so much great new technology that's entering the market every day and so many challenges still to solve, then I think, yes, absolutely, it's a cool job.
Sorry.
I was going to say, I think the way that we work now, I think gone are the days where you spend 2 years building something and then 2 years later you then release it and get to see it. Nowadays, with the different methodologies, like delivery methodologies, you build something, you get to see what you build within 2 weeks. Like there's the big players out there, like Amazon, right? They release something to prod every 11 seconds, which is nuts. It's
Wow.
so often. So imagine being a developer there, and you go, "I've done something, and tomorrow it's going to be in prod." And this is how I deal. Like Netflix does quite similar numbers as well, and they look at the experience of customers on their platforms, and they go, "This process can be cleaned up. Let's do it based on the behaviors of people. Let's develop it. Let's put in a prod tomorrow." So I think coders who can do that quick deployment, they get more pleasure at seeing their work in a live platform within a day or two.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is as well, we're building a solution at the moment for the healthcare industry in America, and you know, you literally have got a chance to change the way that people are having healthcare delivered to them. I mean, that's a cool thing to sit back at the end of your career and say that we had a major impact on the way that healthcare is delivered, or the way that, you know, shopping is done, or the way, you know, all of these solutions. So yeah, the quality of the challenge you're trying to solve with the application is really important.
Great. Just shifting, taking that and moving a little bit further on, I'm sure our audience is going to be interested in this. We have a lot of coders that watch the Reboot Show. Amy Smith, we're getting into hiring. You know, we got both Brendan and Drew here from major software businesses. Hiring of developers. What type of skill sets are we looking for today in developers, do you think, outside of just being great technologists?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, Drew and Brendan both touched on it before. It's being able to have that holistic viewpoint, right? Where it's not just about how skilled you are in the technology, it's actually about how you can solve business problems and how you're going to help meet those outcomes. And having that, you know, all those sorts of things around user experience are way more important now, and looking at that customer-centric approach is hugely important. So, you know, I know from a recruitment standpoint, you're looking at not just the skill, but the cultural fit as well. And it tends to be more around, you know, actually deselecting a lot of people rather than selecting people. So you want to actually make sure that your recruitment process is set up so that people that aren't going to be a fit with you just don't even bother applying, right? Because you need to be able to make sure that it's that cultural fit as well as looking at just the skill as well.
Brandon and Drew, views?
Yeah, I think that there's sorry, Brendan.
No, you go. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a few principles. I think that a growth mindset is hugely important. I think you have to be willing to educate yourself and grow your own skills all the time. I think that your ability to make the right decisions is critical, because usually when you're building applications, every decision that you make now has a downstream consequence, and you have to understand what those consequences are in order to make the right one. So decision making, growth mindset, hard work. What we do is not easy. There's not many software projects that don't, require you to pull an all-nighter every now and then, or give up a bit of time in the evening or weekends when we get close to deadline day. So you have to be willing to put in that work. So some really important qualities if you're looking to work in this industry.
When I look for developers, especially in that interview process, I often leave the technology or development questions to last, because if you put an ad out for a developer, you'll get very similar CVs, right? You'll get someone that's got 5 years experience, they've got 8 certs, they've worked on multiple enterprise-wide implementations. So they're all quite similar, right? I think what people need to do is stand out from the other person to be successful. I think, so what I look for are people's personalities and what they're like as a person, because I think high performing teams are those that have got team members that get along with each other, they work well, they trust each other, and that's away from technology. So my questions are more around those topics, because I want to ensure that I'm getting the right person who'll fit in with everyone else. One of the areas I will look for is be curious, like ask questions. Like during the interview, ask questions about the business, ask questions about the team, because it shows that if we do employ you and we get you on board, you'll ask questions then as well. And the more you ask, the more you learn. It's quite a simple equation.
Yeah.
So, go on, Amy.
I was going to say, I think particularly within the technology space, like you have to be passionate about what you do. To Drew's point, the learning never ends. There's going to be nights where you have to do all-nighters. Like if you're not passionate about what you're actually doing, if you're not driven to make an impact, it's going to be really challenging. So I think that's sort of, if you can see that passion within someone as well, it stands out a mile. And
so what's your view, everyone on the panel, about whether is the only pathway through university today into a coding role? Or are there other pathways? And if you're self-learning, what are some of the things that you could do to increase your chances of moving into this sort of career?
Yeah, I think there's definitely other pathways in there. We certainly don't have a mandatory requirement that someone goes to university. We're going to judge you based on your attitude, all your personality, your ability to do the job. I think that if you're asking about how to showcase that you can have a successful career, I think that getting involved in community development projects, and what I mean by that is contribution to open source projects and things like that. I look at that as a real indicator that somebody is looking to better themselves and contribute to the development community, and progressively showing that you're getting better through your education. So, but university is not necessarily part of that equation. If someone's put in the work, they can do the job, then the university is not something I would say is mandatory.
Yeah, and to back that up, Drew, there were some really good technologists out there that didn't go to university or got kicked out of university.
Some of the best, right?
Some of the best, yeah. So, and I think there's so many online platforms now, and there's universities that offer short courses to plug those skill gaps as well. I think, as Drew said, as long as someone shows that they're continually learning, continually getting certifications and wanting to learn, I think I'll take that over a university degree.
Yeah, I think that one of the questions might be whether or not the universities are up to date enough to produce developers that have got skill sets that are relevant to the workplace today. So it could actually be the opposite,
Yeah, that's a great perspective. Amy, have you got a view on this?
Yeah, I think a lot of developers are self-taught, right? It comes from that passion, that want to learn that they want to learn that technology, and so they're self-taught. And I think mentorship is a huge part of that as well. If you've got someone that has really seeked someone out as a mentor and has worked with them as a mentor, I think that's hugely important as well, because it shows that they've taken the initiative in their career and they've taken ownership of that and they're looking to progress themselves. So I think that's a big sort of key indicator as well.
Brendan, you once offered to be my coding coach. I'm not sure if you were just mucking around there or was there some sort of thing you were pulling with me, but what's your view of coding coaches and mentors in this day and age?
Yeah, well, I'd feel sorry for you if I became that coding coach of you. I don't think you'll get very far. What was the question?
The question was, you offered to be my coding coach at one point. Is this something realistically that exists today that people should consider?
Yeah, it is. It is. I think at any level, really, and it's not just coding. It's any professional. They should try and find themselves a mentor or a coach, and that person has been through it before. So even high level CEOs, they have mentors and coaches. So I really encourage people who have especially just joined sort of this industry or app development, find yourself someone that you can speak to, that you can trust and bounce ideas off. I have one which I use a lot as well, and that's definitely helped. Luke, if you do want me to be your mentor, I'm more than happy to be. It'll be tough for both of us, but I think it can be done.
I'll probably give you a call, but don't expect one soon. So Drew, what are your thoughts?
I think that I've always been very willing to offer any mentorship that I can to people. So I think that people should always remember when they're looking for a mentor that actually when you are mentoring people, that enriches your life and your education as well. So don't think that it's just a one-way street. Don't be shy about asking somebody to go for a coffee and just ask a few questions, because I think that generally speaking, people are always happy to give up their time, especially if they just understand that the sentiment in which they're being asked is for an education and to help someone out. Don't be shy, go for it, get a mentor. It will enrich your life and theirs.
Great. And just in terms of what's the future hold for coding? Like we see AI playing a bigger role now in apps development. What's your thoughts? What's the future hold?
I think with AI, now that you mentioned it, I don't think a lot of companies have really kicked off AI. I think there's still a big boom to come, because I think people can see the end goal, but it's like, how do we get there? So I think if someone wants to get into app development, especially around AI, now's the time. It will boom more than what it is now. So I think now's the time to learn. And there are quite a few different technologies out there that you can jump into to learn. I think the other area is IoT. There's in the same scenario, there was a bit of a boom about it a couple of years ago. With beacons and all that sort of jazz, but I question whether it's actually had that boom yet. And because I think it's similar to AI, it will boom. It'll be a lot bigger, and it's down the track. So I think people need to get involved now just to help become that, or get there faster than what it is now.
Andrew?
Yeah, I think that AI will play a role in helping developers to build solutions which are utilizing the AI frameworks. But I think the discipline of developing software and coding is going to be around and won't be replaced for AI for a very, very long time. The reason why low-code solutions are one of the major reasons why low-code solutions are being created is to fill the gap between the need for applications within organizations, the demand that's like all-consuming, and the lack of good skilled developers. So you need those great developers to be solving the hardest challenges, and then you take the easier stuff and you get that done by the low-code solutions. So the fact that there's less people than there is to solve those problems means that I think coders are safe for a long time.
Yeah.
Great. And Amy, look, just to finish up, what are your thoughts about the key takeaways today for apps development?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, the fast-paced nature that we're in terms of technology isn't going away. If anything, it's going to accelerate. So I think from an individual level, you know, if you're a technologist watching the show, like having that lifelong approach to your learning and your career and being involved in that technology space is super important. And I think from an organizational standpoint, you really need to have that sort of culture where it, you know, you can thrive in that innovation space, and you actually encourage your people to innovate, even if it means they're failing in the process. You know, Google actually incentivizes people to fail at projects. So, you know, I think you need to have that to support your employees as well when they are going through that process of learning.
Yeah, I love that last point, Amy, about failing. Yeah. If we had time, I'd say some cracking stories about failing at work that we don't. But I think people can't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
As long as that person learns something from it. If you send out 1 million emails to a group of people that you shouldn't have, it's not good. It's not a good feeling.
That never happens, does it?
No, of course not. Again. But you learn from it, and you won't do it again. Trust me. So again, people fail. That's fine. Don't stress about it. That's the way you innovate. Just learn from it and don't do it again.
And Drew, your key takeaways from our segment today?
Yeah, I think that I think that there's been some really good points made. I think that all the things that Amy said really resonated around what it would take to get into the industry, the type of people that we attract, and the skills that they need to succeed.
Thank you. Look, thanks very much, Amy Smith, Brendan Cox, and Drew Alexander. I think that's been a really interesting and entertaining segment. Thank you so much.
Make sure to subscribe to the Reboot Show. See you next time.
See you later. Thanks again.
Bye.